I want to talk about things, namely the fact that our materialistic science keeps telling us that we are just a thing. We are our body belongs in the world of objects. Everything is in a way material. Our mind would be a byproduct of brain activity, so the activity of a biological thing. Our consciousness would be another byproduct of the activity of our brain. We are told that the most important thing that we are is our body, because everything else comes from the workings of the body, namely instinct and all that. Therefore, the most important things in life are, in a way, related to the well-being and health of our body. Of course, then also, the best things that can happen to a human being tend to happen in the body or to the body, and they happen in a world of objects, of things. Then, of course, one of the typical consequences for many people is that the supreme God that they worship is something people will call sometimes Dollar Almighty, because Almighty Dollar is indeed the God of everything. It seems to have power about all bodies and all objects that we can see, that we can reach towards, that we can buy, and so on. And in this view also, animal models of behavior and health are fundamental. Pharmaceutical companies keep using animals in their laboratory experimentation, namely for vaccine research, assuming that what is right about animal bodies will be right about the human body also. And I think they are totally wrong about this, and I think probably our dominant worldview is wrong. Therefore, Almighty God is not so important. Let's admit that human beings have a soul, that the most precious thing that they are and they have is their soul, and this soul in turn would be the origin of consciousness, even perhaps of the mind. And being alive is also extremely important, but the most important thing about being alive is that we know we are alive as conscious beings. We are aware of ourselves and our ongoing lives. And we keep forgetting that then perhaps the most important thing for each one of us and for the whole of humanity is life and consciousness and how we deal with them. Because without life and consciousness, there is no culture, there is no joy of beauty, there are no arts, there is no importance for leisure time, there is no joy in just being alive and existing in a joyful way as human beings. Then again, we know that what happens with our consciousness and in our mind is influencing our body health and our mental health constantly. I will not discuss that in here, but we have lots of evidence about this. For instance, we know from stress studies that stress can severely damage our mind and our physical health. There are even connections between severity and the evolution of cancer processes and our states of stress, not just the ongoing stress, but stress from the past that can make us become fragile towards some life events, and in turn those life events can bring permanent stress, chronic stress that damages our immune system, that brings down our defenses in several different ways. Now, about this whole COVID process and the vaccination process, let's keep in mind that aside from not being sure about the middle-term effects of vaccines or the long-term effects of vaccines on human beings, because we are going to start vaccination without knowing about them, we also don't know about the interaction of the psychology of human beings and vaccines. Some will probably feel that they are now reducing stress because they trust vaccines. That's okay. Eventually a nice placebo effect for vaccination. Some will be fearful of vaccines. Some people, anyway, will feel that they need a reduction of stress and they need to be back to some form of normality in their lives. And I'm not sure this will happen because we keep asserting everywhere that we are mostly things, and vaccination also assumes that everything that is wrong with pandemics and with all diseases is something wrong with the bodies. We even know that pharmaceutical companies have a tendency to select volunteers before studying vaccines or any medication. They do this because they are afraid of the placebo effect. They are afraid of the power of the mind to influence the course of diseases. So, if they allowed lots of volunteers that have powerful placebo effects from the way their minds influence their bodies from positive or negative expectations, this would damage their research because they want to demonstrate to some extent that a medication or a vaccine is very good. And too much mind power would damage this. So there is a tendency to select volunteers that are less prone to influencing their bodies from their minds, which to me already is saying a lot about the criteria or some amount of pseudoscience in some research processes, and this can affect the medical and pharmaceutical industry. Anyway, back to what is going on. I would say that we should avoid staying with this idea that our bodies are the most fundamental thing. Because anyway, what makes us believe so is our mind and our consciousness. Without consciousness, we wouldn't be worrying about our bodies. But then, if we really pay attention to this and we really assume that consciousness is fundamental, and so is the mind, and the way the mind influences how we live, how we are with each other, how we think about each other, then it's totally different to think about ourselves and other people as beings with soul, because then we are no longer going to adore Dollar Almighty, but we are going to adore people, love, nature, the planet, humanity, and we are going to love consciousness enhancers such as culture and the products of culture, like the arts, the cultivation of beauty, the quest for leisure and the quest for wisdom and for music, theater, cinema, dance, poetry, and many other expressions of beauty. So, this is what I wanted to discuss for this moment. Let's go back into the possibility that we might have a soul, and respecting the soul in ourselves and everyone else might be fundamental to humanity and perhaps even to the future of humanity. And that's it for today. So, comment, share, eventually subscribe the channel. See you.